Just to explain my title, When a Frog Grows Hair. So basically, at the time, I was teaching in a higher education setting here in Limerick. And it was a 3-hour class per week, ESOL class. And I knew I wanted to focus on vocabulary. I knew I wanted to focus on idioms as one of the sections. And according to Halliday, M.A.K. Halliday, knowledge of the context, the culture, the language itself is necessary to fully understand an idiom. So I decided to test this. And on the first evening, I asked the students to translate idioms from their language into English. Okay. And one of them came from Spanish. So any Spanish speakers may know it. Yeah. Helena, you know this one? Yeah. When a frog grows hair. And it's similar to when pigs fly in English. Now, I understood every word of this idiom, but I didn't understand the meaning because I don't have knowledge of that, of the culture and the language. And of course, pigs can't fly, frogs don't have hair, but I did find one Google Images, so, which is great. So my title was Take Him to the Cleaners, Make Him Do Your Homework, Corpus-Based Analysis of Lexical Structures Used by English Language Learners. I love the title of my corpus, the ACE corpus, I called it, yeah. So the Adult Corpus of English. So I have kind of cheated, I have about 40 slides. So my origin and rationale, I studied German myself throughout secondary school, throughout university here in Mary I, and I was always interested in vocabulary, increasing my own vocabulary. Also as an English language teacher, I was very interested in my students increasing their vocabulary. And through my supervisors, Dr. Anne O'Keefe, Professor Michael McCarthy, we came to John Rupert Firth, who is known as the father of collocation. And Firth said, words do not occur alone, words hunt in packs. And I thought this was amazing. I wanted to see what packs they actually hunt in. So based on the literature, I chose 4 lexical strings. Delexical verbs like make an effort, have a party, collocations like blonde hair, fly a plane, multi-word verbs like phrasal verbs, prepositional verbs, and then idioms, let's say the canonical phrase, raining cats and dogs, which is very, very infrequent actually as well. So they're very, very high frequent in native speaker discourse, but also according to Keffer, they're an indication of a high level of knowledge. So B1 to C2 level, and in the IELTS exam, they're band 7 and above. So the corpus broke down to 2 subcorpora. So you have A2 spoken, A2 written, C1 spoken, C1 written. It was 20,000 written words and 150,000 spoken words. And I had 24 speakers in total. So 9 in the A2 cohort and then 15 in the C1. So I was teaching at NCFE here in Limerick and first got written consent from the director of the college, got consent from all 24 students who took part in the research. The way it kind of worked with these part-time courses is they're for adult learners who are either working full-time or studying full-time in the day. And it's only 3 hours per week. So on the first evening of the course, myself and another teacher, we were put into a room with 24 students and told to divide them into 2 levels. And it was based on a 10-minute questionnaire, written questionnaire. So we didn't know anything about their spoken abilities until we actually had them in the classroom in front of us. But they had the option of taking part in the study. And I was really happy that all 24 agreed to take part in the study. So I recorded the 3-hour classes once a week for the 12 weeks, oral examinations, presentations, peer and group work, essay writing. All of the essays were done handwritten. So then I had to transcribe those as well. I had to type them up. The transcription took ages, a long time. There was no Otter. At the moment, I'm working in a couple of projects here at MIC, and we use Otter, which is great. But back then, there was no Otter, there was no text inspector, so I had to manually transcribe everything. But it did mean that I really knew my data. I knew my data really well by the end. So yeah, basically back then, as I was saying, no text inspector, I had wordsmith tools. Wordsmith tools was great for concordance lists, keyword lists, but for idioms and these lexical strings, it was really difficult to find them. So I had to manually sift through the corpus for all 4. Then I compared it to the British National Corpus, also the LCIE, just to see how frequent they were, and then looked at the English vocabulary profile for their level. There are many, many definitions of idioms, and this is what I found interesting. But they all say kind of the same thing. Like ITO's one, I found that really interesting. It's a phrase that behaves like a word. So that goes back to the word debate. Is a word one unit or is a chunk an actual word as well? They all say that they are interpretable. We need to know the meaning, not just each individual word within the unit. I started off thinking I have an A2 group, I have a C1 group. What happens if they're not using idioms or dialectical verbs or phrasal verbs at all? And another thing that was, it's up for debate how many idioms actually exist in English because of their definition. Ehrman and Warren's is really interesting. They say that 50% of our language is idiomatic, but that's looking like a John Sinclair with a vague expression like something like that, for example. There are 5,000 idioms in the Cambridge Dictionary of American Idioms. If you Google how many idioms in English, it'll tell you 14,000 plus. So there's that debate because it's difficult to actually define what an idiom is. Another interesting one was Saurus. Once every 5 words, we encounter something idiomatic, apparently. So I was thinking, I'm going to be analyzing. It's raining cats and dogs. That's it. No, I had all of these. So after analysis and after research, there's so many things that are considered idiomatic. So it's not just a canonical phrase of, it's raining cats and dogs. You have full idioms, you have binomials, proverbs, clausal idioms, catchphrases, prepositional idioms, cliches. There were so many. McCarthy, 1998, Carter, 1987, and Palma Fahy as well. So, long way away from this. A fun fact. Does anybody know where that idiom actually originated?
They were like typhoons or something, and there was cats like falling from
the floods in London. Yeah. And apparently after the floods lifted, there was dead cats and dogs on the streets. Yeah. So people thought it had rained cats and dogs. But as you know, it's not a very, very frequent expression. Instead, we use things like this. How's it hanging? I was greeted by a student one evening. How's it hanging? Sounds good to me. Give me a... Now, remember, these are ESOL students. They come from everywhere, especially in that class. So there were 423 normalized to match larger corpora. It actually averaged, which is really interesting. The lower level cohort as a group, were actually using them more. Yeah, which was really surprising for me. Again, as I started out, I thought I'm not going to have any. So there was actually a lot. Give me a hand on the tip of my tongue. Shit happens came up. My friend, drink like a fish. It was a piece of cake. I'm dying for a drink. So another thing I hadn't even thought of, I hadn't even expected this, hibernal English. There was 229 examples of colloquial language being used by these students. So the yellow is the C1 cohort, and the grey then is A2. So we had what's the story? Give me a hand, will ya? My friend, said he got the shift. So can't get him out of my head. Little conversation. I'm in the classroom. The student comes in. Hello, guys. Hello, Justin. How are you? I say, I'm great, thanks. And you? And the student replies, me grand. Typical Irish. Yeah? I can't go. I am broke. Can I go to the Gamloo? I'm bursting to pee. Very impressed with that. The exam was so hard, but shit happens. My neighbour, they always fight right, and I can't sleep over their knives. I know her, she thinks she is Fox. She's just stingy. That was a nice one. She's just stingy. And then a little conversation. A and B are talking, and A says, he isn't very bright, is he? B replies, what is bright? Bright is bright, intelligent. Can we say he is as thick as shit? I had great crack transcribing all of this. Made my job worthwhile. I'm fed up with maths. It's a pain in the ass. I'm sick of it. So, and he was so drunk, legless. So just to show you the main thing, there's so many things that can be considered idiomatic. So this is what I did next, was to go through the different types of idioms, and then the occurrences, and then the examples. So you can see clausal idioms, shut your mouth, hit the roof, drive up the wall. Idiomatic phrasal verbs, he got rid of his wife. She took after her mother. Really interesting. back and forth, black and blue came up. The bee's knees, the cat's whiskers. I was very impressed with that. It was a C1 student as well. So slogans, quotations, proverbs, gambits and discourse markers. There were over 50, there was 53 of them. So like, sounds good, how's it going? Absolutely, cool. They started to use this like as well, you know, that we do in Limerick. I do it a lot, like. 43 full idioms. And then something I hadn't even thought of again, hyperbole, this exaggerating, this understating. Like one of them said, I'm dying for a drink. I'm starving. I could eat a horse. Bursting to pee, for example. And just to go back to my title slide and the fact that idioms, we need to have knowledge of the culture, the language in which they've spoken. And Malinowski, Firth, Halliday, Sinclair, they wrote extensively on this. But going back to that first task on the first evening, when a frog grows hair, we were saying Spanish, like similar to when pigs fly. Shit for you. Apparently in Polish, this means the best of luck. Like we say, apparently, we say in English, maybe break a leg, for example. No fighting in the church. This was an interesting one. I had a student from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and he said it meant similar to don't bite the hand that feeds you in English. Don't do something bad too close to home kind of meaning. And again, without knowledge of the culture, I wouldn't have understood any of these. I know every word, but I don't know, or every unit, but I don't know the actual meaning. You have tomatoes in your eyes. Apparently in German, it means that you're seeing the world of the situation through rose-tinted spectacle. Interesting one. It's raining penknives, Portuguese. Yeah, so Portuguese, it's true, Juliana, yeah? So heavy rain, it's raining penknives. A bronze man, apparently in Italian, means a rich man. And the carrots are cooked in French is cannot change the past. Don't cry over spilt milk. And that's it. There's more references. Questions? I've got so much mileage out of that hearing from.
Yeah. And like anytime like I teach slower, now I spend like either the first 10 minutes or the last 10 minutes, whatever topic we're doing, I always teach them idioms because at the moment I'm teaching C1 level and they're going for their Cambridge exam next week.
And they love them as well. Yeah.
Well, they love them, but the C1 students, although like every other thing they tick the box with grammar, vocabulary, anything, but with idioms, they very little knowledge of it.
Yeah.
But I have a book which has like a load of idioms and then the explanations of them.
I have one as well.
Oh, but it's so
great.
interesting. I do anything.
That's where I got my fun fact from. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's great.
Like the bee's knees. Do you know that one?
Yeah.
What do you know what the origin of that?
No,
it's because they carry the nectar
in
their knees, so it's like a really good thing.
Yeah, and I think the same with the cat's whiskers, isn't it?
Yes,
Because,
yeah. So
they're really interesting. They're really fascinating. You know?
Yeah.
It was a chapter that really surprised me because I didn't think I'd get anything from it, and I actually got a lot out of them. Yeah.
Is it fair to say, Justin, tossing this out to everybody, is English more idiomatic than other languages? I'm not fluent in the second language.
I found a quote that said it is, but then I found another quote that said it wasn't. Because I remember actually bringing it up with Anna. I remember bringing it up, and it said something like English is the most figurative language.
Yeah.
But then we found other quotes that were kind of saying, well, why is English more figurative than, let's say, German, for example?
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Maybe just more data has been.
These have to be extended in your Spanish.
Have you or do you normally work with features of connected speech within the idiom that you're teaching to help learners identify that speech?
We would definitely,
Great.
have a lot, have done a lot in the past.
Yeah, it's quite hard.
It
We
is.
do teach it, but when it comes to spoken language, it's difficult for them to.
And we use these chunks so frequently in
We use
spoken
them.
language.
Yes.
We do. And again, like C1 level and Kefir shows how important they actually are to have those chunks.
Follow-up question. Do you have those the profile of advanced student who after learning a lot of idioms just wanna throw them all in
Everywhere. I've had students in oral exams. I've had students in oral exams,
Yeah.
and they just throw in an idiom. Because I've told them, you know, it's high level,
Yeah.
but try not to make it unnatural or to
Yeah.
overuse it. And I've had students who just go idiom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's great, but exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, I mentioned it, I think I did, but like what was really interesting was there was no pepper in this institution. There was no can-do statements. It was based on feedback, Further Education Training Awards Council. And there was no can-do statements. There was nothing that we were just told teach them for the next 12 weeks. So we could teach them anything. So we looked into this, saw how high they were, so we started teaching them that way as well.
So purely based on what they were actually, as opposed to any preconceptions
Exactly.
they could do.
Exactly. So like in the actual, there was no like, you have to teach them Indians, you have to teach them phrase and verbs. There was nothing like that.
Yeah.
Actually just producing them. Except for that one evening when I did do the task on idioms, where I said, tell me some idioms in your language. And then it ended up being, we started chatting about idioms at the higher level. But like the lower level, they're producing, you know, we're producing phrase and verbs, they're producing lexical verbs. So yeah, I thought I was going to get nothing and I got a lot. So.